My name is Damon Brown of DamonBrown.net. My main thing is helping you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, or otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. Today we're talking about Brene Brown, the social scientist. I love her work. And we're talking about how you're going to let people down. And that's okay. That's actually part of the process. I learned this from her book, Braving the Wilderness. And she talks about how she learned this from Oprah Winfrey. So we're talking about two powerhouses that are having a discussion. And this is how Brene Brown, who's a powerhouse herself, is looking up to Oprah Winfrey. Here's what Oprah said to her. Do not think you can be brave with your life and your work and never disappoint anyone in it. It doesn't work that way. That is powerful. Brene says that she, according to her book, she actually put this quote on her wall, right? So she's killer with the quotes. If this quote is on her wall in her office, then you know it's some serious stuff. I think there's three really big lessons that we can learn from this. No one's going to care as much as you do. As you might know, I do a lot of coaching, like one-on-one coaching. And a little while ago, I was talking to a small business owner, and they were trying to find people to hire, because their business was trying to expand. And they said they were having a hard time finding someone because they couldn't find people who cared as much as they do. And I pulled them aside and I said, well, that might be hard to do because you're the founder. It's going to be really difficult to find other people that care as much as you do. Sometimes when we're looking for support or we're looking for encouragement or more importantly, validation, which I think we need to be honest about that, when we do that, sometimes we're looking towards other people to say, yes, I care as much as you do about this path that you have that's uniquely yours. That's not a realistic assessment, in my opinion. Like, you have this unique vision. I argue that it's a vision that you're born with. So if you're born with this vision and someone else has a different vision, then how are they going to be as passionate about your vision? If you want to set up an ice cream truck and you're like, Damon, I really want to set up an ice cream truck. I'm like, that's great. Do I like ice cream? Yeah. Do I want to set up an ice cream truck? No. So I'm not going to share that same passion. And so I think, again, we sometimes are looking towards getting a cosign or validation, and we don't want to disappoint other people. But in reality, our vision is ours, and often ours alone, particularly when we first start something. The amount of times that I've talked to people, and you might have felt this too, I've even experienced this, where I didn't even start something because other people didn't quite see my vision. And then later on, I'm like, well, I should have started that years ago. As I talk about in my TED Talk about the power of good enough, even though I tend to be very ambitious and I have a decent resume, there's so many things that I didn't do. And part of that was because of that validation, and I didn't want to disappoint other people, but other people can't share that vision. Number two, we have to understand that no one should care as much as we do. They just shouldn't. If you're doing the late nights, early mornings, if you're doing the sacrifices, if you're going back to school, if you're hiring a coach like myself and you're getting the books, if you're doing the knowledge, as they say, no one else should care as much as you do. Me helping solopreneurs, side hustlers, and non-traditional entrepreneurs, I know very few people that care about it as much as I do, nor should they. And so if I'm putting in the hours, if I'm putting in the time, then other people aren't going to be able to understand it on my level, nor should they. And the deeper I go onto this path, just like the deeper you go on your particular path, the less people are going to understand that level of passion. They can respect that level of passion, but they might not get the sacrifices that you make. When I co-founded my second app called Cuddler, which connected people for hugs, was the big startup that I'm best known for. We're on the cover of the Wall Street Journal. We had 250,000 users. We ended up selling it about a year after we started, and we bootstrapped it, sold it as a profit. It was at a profit. It was an amazing, intense journey. But up until we were on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, those months leading up to us launching the app, people thought we were crazy. People were saying that to my face. People I respect, people that I love. They're like, you're doing an app to connect people for hugs? This is 2014, so this is the era of Tinder and Grindr. And if you weren't around in that era, you can do a Google of Cuddler, Cuddlr, and see that environment at the time, but it was all about connecting people. And I saw the vision, along with my two co-founders, to do it in a platonic way, to connect people for hugs, as opposed to hooking up culture. That was unheard of at the time. Now, particularly as we're going post-pandemic, everyone could use a hug. But 7-8 years ago, people didn't see that vision, but myself and my two co-founders did. If we didn't start when we started, then we wouldn't have made the impact on culture. And then from a financial standpoint, we wouldn't have been able to sell our business and have our success, again, with our 250,000 users. But we had listened to our voice. And I'm sure we disappointed a lot of people because there's other things we could have been doing at the time. But people weren't disappointed when we sold the app. People weren't disappointed when we had 250,000 users. Then they saw the vision. So you're going to maybe hurt some people's feelings. Maybe you might get your own feelings hurt on your particular path, but you have to trust that path because again, that vision is yours and yours alone. As Oprah said, you can't make that impact on your life and make an impact with your work and keep everybody happy. That the only thing that's going to happen is that you're going to be unhappy with that. And finally, no one will understand it as much as you do. You have a particular gift, a particular vision. And it might be as simple as, again, doing ice cream truck or starting a dry cleaners, or it could be as complex as trying to, stop world hunger. It doesn't really matter in that way. What matters is that no one else is going to be at that level as passionate as you are. If you happen to have kindred spirits, then maybe you end up working with them on some level. But maybe that's not going to happen. And maybe it ends up being that you understand that vision in a way that other people won't. If you have other people around you that understand it, cool. But waiting for that acceptance and that validation, that's not going to make it for you. And there's so many people, there's like countless people. Like you think of any type of entrepreneur, any type of founder, any type of creator, people that are in the traditional startup space, or you can think about the people that are doing the movements like the Black Lives Matter movements, but people that are making an impact in ways that ruffles a lot of feathers. But then later on, you understand why they were doing it. What Brene's saying, what Oprah's saying, what I'm saying is that this is meant to be a lonely road. If it was a crowded path, then what you'd be doing wouldn't be special. That in itself makes you you. That's what makes the journey worth it. If everyone was cheering you on and they understood what the heck you were doing, that's often a sign that you can go a little bit deeper. And you have this unique opportunity. We always have this unique opportunity to make an impact on the world. But how can you make an impact on the world if you expect everyone to understand what you're doing, to see what you're doing, and to validate what you're doing? It doesn't work like that. And from my best-selling books to the TED Talks to the coaching, to, again, Cuddler, my second startup that I sold, people didn't understand what I was doing. What Brene's saying, what Oprah's saying, what I'm saying is that that's okay. And in fact, that might be a sign that you're onto something that's truly unique and yours. Don't be afraid of people not understanding what you're doing. If you want to go deeper into your business and understand more about how to maximize your resources, come on over to buildfromnowquiz.com, buildfromnowquiz.com. It's based on my new book, Build From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. You'll learn about the 4 resources, what you have the most of. The quiz is multiple choice. We're approaching 1,000 people that have taken it. Crazy numbers. I'm so glad to be able to support all of y'all. It's a 2-minute quiz. Again, it's completely free. You'll be able to get those insights. If you're enjoying this show, the Bring Your Worth show, then be sure to like, share, comment. I actually lost my train of thought. And subscribe, particularly subscribe wherever channel you happen to be listening to it or watching it on YouTube or whatever, because that tells me that you're liking this program and encouraged me to do more. And if you want me to do specific topics, throw them into the comments or drop me a line over at damebrown.net. Okay, until next time, remember that you can always bring your worth and that you can always build from now. Take care.